ACL. Well, someone was asking me about my life. Well, I guess I'll tell it. Well, I'm a born Canadian in the Maritimes, and I was raised by a traditional, conservative, Christian-minded military family. Basically, my father was a communications, my mom was a paratrooper, my sister's father, half-sister, her father was a medic in the military. My grandfather was in the Air Force. My grandmother was in the Army. My great-grandfather was in the Navy. My great-great-grandfather was in the Army. And my great-grandmother was in the German Navy. And then later on, after the war, in the Canadian Air Force. So, big military family. We're also raised conservative views. Because my family were loyalists and been here for generations before Canada was even Canada. But that's just, just a brief introduction. But basically what happened is I didn't have a good childhood. In school, sorry, I got restless leg syndrome. My school, they were getting frustrated at a young age that I wasn't doing my schoolwork and things like that, and they were getting frustrated and saying that I was going to be failing, and my parents were upset by it, and they were going to try to put me on medication. So my parents had me tested, and they brought me to one of these specialist doctors or people that analyze children at the time. This is about grade 1, grade 2, I think. One or the other. I think it was grade 2. Anyway, they basically tested me, made me do puzzles, made me work things out, math questions, science questions, nature questions, all these questions. And they came back and they said, well, 148 out of 170. So that was my IQ. So it wasn't that I didn't do the work, and it wasn't that I didn't know the work, it was that I was bored. And so I went from one public school to another public school, and then from that public school I went into a private school, and then into another private school, and then into a public school, and then into a public high school. So that's how my education went. Now, both private schools were Christian. Like I said, I was raised Christian, baptized twice. But both my parents being in the military, they were around the Agent Orange. So I was around Agent Orange because my mom was pregnant with me at the time. And my father was digging up and reburying that stuff at the time, because it went from Agent Orange to Agent Rainbow and things like that. Anyway, there were settlements done by the Canadian government. I was one of the people that didn't get nothing. I suffered long-term side effects all my life. I started working when I was 7. I did Christmas tree lots, shoveling Christmas tree lots. I went and I took people's garbage out. I'd get like $1 for that, each bag. I started shoveling the Christmas tree lots, worked my way up to actually feeding them and trimming them in the summer months. And then I ended up selling them too, all before the age of 10. And then my parent, dad, I never knew until I was almost 3, 4. He was off and on over in Europe with the Canadian Forces. My mom, basically after she got out of the military and things like that, she was in it still for a little bit, and then she got out, and my dad didn't live with us, so my mom was upbringing, to be respectful. There was partying in the house. There was DRUG in the house, and being used, and a lot of other things, a lot of people. But besides that, I got hit with a cast iron frying pan twice by my mother. She said the first time was an accident. I got punched in the ribs. It was a bunk bed, so right up high, and I was laying just like face down towards the wall, and I asked for a sandwich, and I got basically a rib shot because I kept asking for a sandwich, and I must have been annoying. But I was around 6 or 7 at the time. So that just explained my childhood. And in private school, they would still give you the paddle, but they'd bring your relative in to do it. So that really didn't, wasn't really a good thing. I was also beaten, not by my parents though, by a group of people when I was very young, to the point where I was black, blue, and purple, and had to stand in front of Popo in my underwear, but nobody really got charged with that. Surprising. Gotta love the 3-letter word with the Y for their camps for that one. I'm just saying it that way because YouTube. But yeah, and I never loved summer camps after that. Just FYI. I was also locked in the trunk. I was also locked in the freezer. I also had lightning hit outside my bedroom window when I was a kid looking at it and ended up temporarily blind. I also, when I was a teenager, had lightning hit a tree right beside me and made me temporarily blind too. So I don't like lightning. I also died twice when I was being born. I also drowned around the time that I was between 5 and 7. And a lady had to jump in and bring me out and, resuscitate me. What happened there was, I was running with my sister, and my sister was being smart, and she pushed me, and I didn't know how to swim, and went in the deep end, and right down to the bottom. That was up in the drive-in in NB. A lot of people know what that is. You drive in with your vehicle and watch the movie. They don't have a lot of those nowadays. But yeah, that happened. I was also kicked out of my home when I was 14, because my parents said I was a troublemaker. And I was a little bit, but nothing that a normal kid would have did. I know a lot of other kids that did worse things. Like, I didn't, do anything bad. So 14, I was kicked out, walking the streets in St. John, and going in bus stops to get out of the rain and wind and things like that. And when I go to work, I jam my clothes bag and things like that, the things that I had that I cherished, in a big duffel bag behind the Salvation Army. And also when I went to high school, because I was in high school at the time, and which is SJ High, which is built in 1805, the oldest high school in Canada. Students that went to school there also fought in the War of 1812, so that just tells you how old our high school was that I went to. But I like my city. My high school was built in 1805. My city was founded in 1604. We were the first incorporated city of all of Canada. So I love the history of where I live. But besides that, we got British forts here, French forts. We got Fort Howe, we got Fort Ottawa, which is a French fort, and we got Metella Tower, which is a British fort. So we got lots of blockhouses and forts and things like that, and stone forts. That's pretty cool. But back to what I was saying, I didn't have the best upbringing, and from the Agent Orange, I ended up with a lot of health effects. And it started off in my teenage years. I started getting a pneumothorax, which is a collapsed lung. When you get a hole in your lung, and basically time I was a teenager to now in my early 30s, I've had 11 pneumothoraxes, one surgery on my polyps, and one surgery for cancer, all in the lungs. And as you can see, I got this one. These are multiply cut open, as you can see, 1, 2, and then this one, and then there's even some right there you can barely see. It's like whitish because it's older, right? Like I said, some here, and then one here, one here, one here, and I got one on my back. Like, and this last time that I had it, they screwed up, man. Like getting air in my body, and I had all these crispies. Like you'd feel it, like crunching of like plastic almost inside your body. Everywhere you touch, it was crinkly, almost like Rice Krispies all over my body. So that wasn't good. This year I had 2 collapsed lungs. I've had lung surgery, so technically 3 surgeries, and then because of the crispies and the fluid buildup in my back, I had another surgery. Plus I had the flu, COVID, and a mild heart attack, and a collapsed lung. One lung was 3/4 of the way collapsed, all at the same time. So people that had COVID and they say it was the hardest thing ever, try having COVID, the flu, and a pneumothorax, and a mild heart attack at the same time. Okay, and then come back and talk to me. Okay, and say it's hard. I've had lots of problems besides that. Now this hurts under here all the time. This is numb all the time. I sneeze or cough. My leg gives out from the nerves. And it's bad, and the hospitals don't really care. I tell them, I try to ask doctors, my family doctors, and everything else in the hospital, and they just go, we'll try this, we'll try that, da da da. But they won't give scans or CTs or try to find out, what's kinked in my body or what's kinked off, and the blood flow and things like that. But they don't. My lower back stays cold, but the rest of my body stays warm. Lack of circulation there. And I can't work anymore because I can't legally lift anything because of the childhood, all the things that I was explaining, and that's just for the top of my head. I have PTSD really bad from that. I get really nervous and shakes and tremors, and sometimes to the point of puke, just from being in public and around people. So it's been years since I've been actually out. I go to the hospital, I'll go to my family doctor, I'll go to my church during events. If I needed to pick up my kids from the bus, I would do that, right? Like things like that. Or if my kids had like a little event, right? Because they do things with the church and stuff, right? I'll go up and I'll see things like that. Because I do want to do things. It's just it's really hard. I take a medication for that. It's like 200 milligrams of like something with an S a day. I also have to take my Tecta for my stomach because it's always like getting all screwed up in there on me. I also have a thyroid condition, which probably relates to the Agent Orange. The pneumothoraxes and all that relates to the Agent Orange. They're all side effects of that stuff. Also the thyroid is because the hospital here never once in my life ever gave me a lead vest or anything to protect my neck or my area. So yeah, they don't follow the safety precautions. And it sucks that I can't work. My wife can't work because she used to be suicidal. I got her help with that. She's done really good with that, and I got her all straightened out with that because she suffered from depression in the summertime, which is kind of strange, I would think it'd be winter, but everyone's different, to each their own. But I love my wife. I've known my wife since she was 4.5. We went to kindergarten, grade 1 together. We went to high school together. I used to like hang out and follow her, and play the catch, but eventually I ended up marrying her. We've been married for going on 13 years, 12, almost 13 years. My oldest is 13, second oldest 12, next oldest 7, and next oldest is going to be turning 5, and working on basically, my son suffers from an ostomy, and he also has osteoporosis. Both things were diagnosed and done and everything, you know. Got him all the help with that. And my daughter, that's 13, because that's my 12-year-old son. My daughter, that's 13, she had, I assumed fetal alcohol syndrome from my first relationship, because my first two were from that. And their mother had schizophrenia and other stuff, which I found out later on. And my son's starting to show signs of that too, on top of his ostomy and stuff, so it's really hard. I've been trying to get my daughter tested for, oh my god, 8 years now for fetal alcohol syndrome, but welcome to Canada. Try to get my wife mental health here when she was doing stuff here, and here they don't have a mental health program that's really good or satisfying, and you can ask anyone in our province. They basically pat you on the back and let you go. So, welcome to Canada on that too. And then another thing is because my wife can't work because it costs her the same amount of money that she'd make to pay in gas to go to work, and I can't work physically or emotionally, so kind of puts me and my family in a damper, especially when we're a family of 6. So I had to go on welfare because I couldn't afford medical supplies for my son and food and rent and everything else. So to put that in perspective, my cancer medication is $148.63, I believe. My other ones are covered through welfare, but cancer medication's not. And I had to get them to start covering my son's ostomy because that was the biggest money loss. Like, I had it appraised last month, and yeah, it's COVID and all this stuff in the world's going on, but for $2,700 and some change for all of his medical supplies in 1 month, so that's times 12, okay? When I only get from welfare, me and my wife, for our entire family, is 16 grand. 16 grand. Actually, it's less than that. But including the family and the money from the government, like GST and things, and then welfare, in the whole year you make about 32 grand-ish, or under. But try paying rent, medical, car insurance, anything the car might need, heat and lights, and internet. That's pretty bad, because we have a pay-as-you-go cell phone, because it's the cheapest thing we can do, and we pay for internet so that, you know, you can watch shows or keep the kids entertained and things like that. And basically, that's still a lot. And the area I'm in, you have to pay for data too, so it's not unlimited data, so you get nailed there too, right? Because I live in the country, and I live 42 kilometers from the nearest city, and my car's broke down now too, because since I've been on welfare with my wife, trying to better ourselves and provide for our kids in the appropriate way, because if not, then the government comes after you, right? So you had to do what you got to do. And the thing is they don't give you enough to keep your life going. They don't give you enough to get yourself ahead to get off of welfare. Like, I would love to fix the car. I would love for my wife to actually find a nice job. I'd like for her to actually work, and then just have the government help out, you know, for the opposite end, right? Because me and my wife, we were always workers up until a couple of years ago, when basically things it literally just got way too hard to do. And this society in this country is bad. Like, people think that Canada's perfect, and it's not. It's really not. For example, when I was a kid, when, you know, kids had parties and things when you were a kid, right? And in my home city, when I grew up, like, if you had a party and it got busted by the PO, they would knock on the door They wouldn't break it in. They'd knock on the door and let everyone run out the back door. And then when they would go into the place, any liquor that wasn't open and things like that, that would go in their trunk and that would be theirs. So, like, I don't get it. And the saying in our city, right, was, 100 and some odd years, but serving the community for a decade and a half. Think about it. It's pretty bad. And on top of it, like, there's no mental health stuff. So, like I said, they just pat you on the back and let you go. There's this, like, I have this stuff, all my nerves and stuff, sneezing, coughing, hit the ground, like, can't help with that. Even when I was a kid, like, my hand went through glass, and you can probably see it on my finger, it's a little bit screwed up. Anyways, when I went into the hospital, my finger was hanging off, okay? And there's a pool of blood about this big underneath my chair. And the only person in that hospital that asked me if I was okay at the time was the security guard. They knew I was bleeding out. And then when they actually did stitch my finger up, they didn't clean the glass out of it. He just stitched my finger up. And the amusing part was, as soon as he was done, he's like, "Yep, I'm done my shift." So that's pretty bad. And then on top of it, right, so this was screwed up. My nerve endings screwed up in here. Plus I had all this, which screws up my nerve endings, right? And this has been happening so many times that it screwed the nerve ending up in my foot. And you probably can't see it that well, but there's actually a scar that goes between here and down in between the toes. Yeah, I know, I got girls, so they do my nails. I don't care. I don't go to that, so whatever. These nails aren't done. Just let me do my toenails. Get some practice, I guess. But the thing is I had a bullet go through my foot when I was a kid too, by an accident from a family member. So that, I almost lost the ability in my foot. So between that's my left foot, this is my left hand, this is my left side all cut up so many times. And they're not all putting these all things together in the hospital and going, okay, well, we need to get you all sorted out and get your blood flowing properly and get your circulation going properly. Because my lower back is literally like an ice cube. And then you can touch my forehead and it's probably anywhere from 72 to fucking 83. Pardon my French there. Sorry about that. But it's just literally crazy in this world how the government likes to work out and things like that. Because they don't help at all in society. And from my childhood being so bad, and then I never had help with that when I was a kid. No one stopped my parent or parents, and and all those things happened to me, and the government didn't do nothing, and they knew about it. CPS knew about it. There's even a file number about my mom about it, but they never ever did anything about it. And the funny part is they still allow my mom into that field and doing all this stuff. So they never learn. And then they don't help people out. What they do is the very bare minimum. Very bare minimum. It's just like my community that I live in. The government forced amalgamated all of us into one area, and it's like, man, don't we have a vote on it? Isn't this a democracy? No. They even said forced amalgamation. And then we put up a stink, and they're like, well, can we at least have a revote on like who's going to be the mayor and the council? Because we didn't have mayors and shit like that. We had MLAs. And now we have a mayor and a council, and it's like, okay, but do we get a vote on it? And they're like, no. And then because we complained, they're like, well, we'll add 3 counselors. New counselors, yeah. And then when we got the notice for vote, they're like, but we don't want you to vote. You don't need to vote. And then when I woke up today, they're like, yeah, the vote was already done. It's like, you told us not to vote. Where's our say? Where's the democracy? There isn't one. So it's like, what the hell? And then it's like, and it doesn't make sense because when I was born, and a lot of people in the city that I'm born in, because we are the first city of Canada, under King William III, we are free citizens. We get a secondary birth certificate signed by the Lord of the city, which is our mayor. Because we have our own civic crown, and we have our own military level crown, and we have like the little metal thing that goes around the neck with the little, cape-like thing for our mayor in the city that I grew up in. And we got 2 birth certificates, one from the province of Canada and one for the city, which was granted to us by royal charter by King William III, stating that we were free-born citizens. But the funny thing is if we're free-born citizens, why do we have to listen to Canada? And that's another thing too. Our history is walked on in New Brunswick. And it's sad that my country of New Brunswick in Canada is, and I say my country because it's not a province, it's a country. A lot of people are mistaken about Canada. Canada's name is properly Canada Inc. It's a corporation. And my city was founded in 1604. Canada came into existence in 1867. Now, Upper Canada had the Red River Rebellion because they didn't want to join Canada, Upper Canada. And then in Lower Canada, we did it a little more democratically, like democracy. And if you go and you look at Nova Scotia in the 1800s, around 1867, we voted overwhelmingly not to join Canada. But they overthrew us and combined us with Upper Canada anyways. So our whole country is not based on a democracy. It's all based on forced amalgamation. And a lot of people don't realize, they're like, I laugh at people all the time, they're like, oh yeah, I own 40 acres, or own this, or own that, and it's like, they don't. They don't. If you read the definition of the land in Canada, you don't own the land. You own the right to use the land, you have the right to have your home on it, but you don't own it. Look it up. It's the truth. And anything that says crown land, if you actually start going through all the different definitions of the crown land, it's basically the natives' land that the crown actually holds on behalf of the natives, but don't give the natives rights to it. Because they already gave them reserves. Which is, I kind of see, like, but at the end of the day, it's like nobody owns land. And no one's taught that there's mineral rights to land, mineral rights to land, rights to use the land, and then there's also sky rights, which means that your building can only be so tall. People don't know these things. These should be things that are taught. And when I went to school, we used to sing "O Canada," put our hands over our heart. One kid would get to hold the flag at the front of the classroom, and you had the Queen's picture at the front of the classroom over the chalkboard, and all these things. And we'd sing "O Canada" and things like that. And nowadays, kids don't sing "O Canada." They don't put their hands over their heart. I used to be excited to be that kid at the front of the classroom holding the flag with his hand over his heart. They don't do that anymore, which is sad. Like, where's our patriotism? And that's another thing too. Like, a lot of people aren't taught in school that New Brunswick had 3 capitals, because St. John was the capital before Fredericton, and they moved that during the World Wars. And then before even St. John, it was Jenseg. Jenseg, New Brunswick was the capital of Arcadia, or New France, whatever the heck you want to call it. And my kids, when they go to school, have to learn French, and I get that. And my kids want to learn French, and I approve of it. But at the end of the day, it's like, I want you to teach my kids what the law states. I want you to teach them French Acadian. New Brunswick is bilingual in French Acadian. Now, what people in Canada don't realize is French Acadian and French Quebecois are 2 different languages. So it's confusing, because there's 5 French languages in the world. There's Paris French in France, then there's Quebec French, and then there's Arcadian French. And Arcadian French is also the same as Cajuns in the United States, because they are Acadian. Because that's where they went after the New France war against the British and everything. And they don't widely teach that Newfoundland and Labrador joined Canada way at the end of World War II. And they don't tell a lot of the kids that there was two territories when I was a kid, and they split one of them in 1999 to make three. Now, I asked my kids all once, about the Canadian maple flag, and it's like, well, what does the Canadian flag mean? A lot of people don't realize this. They're like, well, what does it mean? Well, the red means French, and white means purity and peace. But the red maple leaf, because we have a lot of maple trees, but each point on the maple leaf is 13, which stands for 3 territories and 10 provinces. That's what I was taught. But the thing is it'd be incorrect because when I was a kid, there was 12, not 13. So the reason why they split the territory was to make it seem right. Now, that's another thing that's not taught in the schools, is Canada had the Union Jack, then we had the red ensign, then we had the blue ensign, and then we had the flag we had today. So we've had 4 flags, and they don't teach that in school. And they stopped teaching cursive in school, so I had to teach my own kids. They give the basic outline of Roman numerals, and then they expect the parents to teach their kids. And then and they don't teach them FaceTime to read a clock. And we live in New Brunswick, where FaceTime is on every building. There's no digital clocks. Like, we have so many old churches from the 17 and 1800s, it's not even funny. And they all have FaceTime. So, I don't know what to tell them. It's sad that they don't teach them it. And they're not teaching them proper lines of history either. And certain battles that we fought. And how many wars we've been in. And how many wars we were in before we were a country. And they never tell the students that, the United States attacked Canada twice. And they even bribed Irish to come over and do it one time too, so technically 3 times. And they don't talk about how Canada partly invaded Russia at one time during one of the wars. Like, it's funny how history is so corrupt in our country. It's not even funny. When I was a teenager, I went out to the west coast of Canada with my relative, and I went to, my cousin was younger than me, had her history book, social studies, and she's going out through it and stuff, and she was going through the 1800s time period, and I was like, looking through it, and I was like, well, where's the War of 1812? Didn't have it in her history book or her social studies. And then I flipped the Canadian social studies book over, and it says, made in the USA. It's like, well, of course USA is not going to actually say, hey, we lost a war against you. I'm not going to put it in our history books because they don't want us to know that. But the truth to be told, every statue in Washington, D.C., most of the ones, are all painted white because of all the blackness. So, until next time.